The Sands Hotel glowed like a jewel in the desert night on September 14th, 1957. The main showroom was packed with over 1,000 people, all of them dressed in nines, all of them there to see one man, Dean Martin. He was at the absolute peak of his career. His records were selling millions. His movies were box office gold. His partnership with Jerry Lewis had just ended, and instead of fading away like the critics predicted, Dean had soared even higher. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, a private party after the show in the Copa Room, the most exclusive space in the entire hotel. Frank Sinatra was there, Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, the usual crew, but the woman on Dean's arm was someone new to the inner circle. Her name was Vivienne Rousseau, and she was exactly the kind of woman who turned heads in 1950s Las Vegas. Vivienne was stunning, dark hair, green eyes, a figure that made every dress look like it was designed specifically for her. She spoke with a slight French accent that made everything she said sound sophisticated. She'd appeared in Dean's life 3 months earlier, introduced by a mutual friend at a party in Beverly Hills. She seemed to understand the entertainment world, seemed comfortable with the spotlight, seemed perfect. Dean was taken with her. Not in love, not yet, but intrigued, charmed. She was intelligent, witty, and she never seemed impressed by his fame, which made her more interesting than the usual starlets who threw themselves at him. Over the past 3 months, they've been seen together at all the right places. The Macambo in Hollywood, the Flamingo in Vegas, charity galas and movie premieres. Tonight's party was supposed to be the next step, an intimate celebration with his closest friends, signaling that Vivienne was becoming part of Dean's inner world. The kind of party that got written about in the gossip columns, that made people whisper about engagement rings and wedding bells. The Copa Room was intimate by Vegas standards, only about 300 seats. But those 300 seats were the most coveted in the entire city. Red leather booths, crystal chandeliers, a stage that had hosted every major entertainer in America. Tonight, it was set up for a private party. Tables arranged in a semicircle, a 5-piece jazz band playing softly, champagne flowing freely. Dean had performed earlier to a packed house in the main showroom. 2 shows, both standing ovations, both perfect. Now he was relaxed, his bow tie loosened, his tuxedo jacket draped over the back of his chair. He was drinking as usual, a glass of apple juice that everyone assumed was whiskey. That was part of Dean's genius. He rarely drank on performance nights, but he played the part so well that everyone believed the drunk crooner persona. Vivienne sat beside him, radiant in an emerald green gown that matched her eyes. She'd been laughing at Joey Bishop's jokes, charming Frank with questions about his upcoming album, playing the perfect girlfriend. Dean watched her work the room and felt satisfied. This was good. This felt right. The meal was exceptional. Prime rib, lobster thermidor, Caesar salad prepared tableside. The Sands spared no expense for Dean Martin. He was one of their biggest draws, one of the reasons people flew to Las Vegas from all over the world. Keeping Dean happy meant keeping the money flowing. As the main course was being cleared, Vivienne leaned close to Dean. "I have a surprise for you," she whispered, her perfume subtle and expensive. "I arranged something special for dessert." Dean smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she said, touching his hand. "You work so hard. You deserve to be spoiled." She excused herself, saying she needed to check with the kitchen, make sure everything was perfect. Dean watched her go, admiring the way she moved through the room with such confidence. Frank caught his eye and raised his glass in a knowing salute. Dean grinned back, but something felt off. It was nothing Dean could point to specifically, just a feeling, an instinct honed from years in show business, where reading people was the difference between a good performance and a great one. Vivienne had been perfect all evening. Too perfect, maybe, like she was playing a role. Dean shook off the thought. He was being paranoid. The end of the partnership with Jerry had made him suspicious of everyone, made him wonder who wanted to be friends with Dean Martin the person versus Dean Martin the star. But Vivienne had never asked him for anything, never pushed for introductions or favors. She'd been content to just be with him. The kitchen doors swung open, and waiters emerged carrying individual desserts on silver trays. Chocolate cake, rich and dark, with a single raspberry on top. The presentation was elegant, Simple, expensive. Very Vivienne. She returned to the table just as the desserts were being set down. "I hope you like chocolate," she said, sliding into her seat beside Dean. "I remembered you mentioning it was your favorite." Dean looked at the cake. It looked perfect, smelled perfect. The raspberry glistened under the chandeliers. "You remembered," he said, touched by the gesture. "I remember everything you tell me," Vivienne said, and there was something in her voice, something Dean couldn't quite place. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. The band started playing That's Amore, one of Dean's biggest hits. Everyone at the party laughed and applauded. Frank stood up and started singing along, badly on purpose, making everyone laugh harder. It was a perfect Vegas moment. Magic and friendship and success all wrapped up in one night. Dean picked up his fork. He was about to take his first bite when he noticed something. A flicker of movement near the stage, back in the shadows where the curtains met the wall. Someone was there. Someone small. At first, Dean thought it was a child from one of the staff members, maybe wandered in from the back hallways. The Sands was a maze of corridors and service entrances, easy to get lost in if you didn't know your way. But then the figure stepped forward slightly into the dim light at the edge of the stage. It was a girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. Her dress was dirty, torn at the hem. Her hair was tangled, her face smudged with dirt. She was painfully thin, her arms like sticks, her collarbones visible even from across the room. She didn't belong here, not in the Copa Room, not at the Sands, not in this world of luxury and excess. And she was staring directly at Dean. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Dean saw something in her face that made him freeze. Desperation, fear, urgency. The girl raised one small hand and pointed, not at Dean, at his dessert plate. Then she shook her head slowly, emphatically. A clear message. No. Dean set down his fork, his instincts screaming at him now. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. The girl's lips moved, forming words Dean couldn't hear over the music and conversation. But he could read them. He'd grown up in Steubenville, Ohio, where sometimes you had to read lips across a noisy speakeasy to know what was being said. "Don't eat it," the girl was mouthing. She put something in it. Dean's blood went cold. He looked at Vivienne. She was watching the band, smiling, her hand resting casually on the table near his dessert plate. Everything about her body language said relaxed, content, innocent. But Dean had spent his entire life reading people. And now that he was looking, really looking, he could see it. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way her eyes kept flickering to his plate when she thought he wasn't watching. The barely perceptible nervousness in her smile. She was waiting for him to eat. Dean looked back at the girl, but she'd melted back into the shadows, gone as quickly as she'd appeared. Had he imagined it? No. The girl had been real. The warning had been real. "Everything okay?" Vivienne asked, noticing that Dean hadn't touched his dessert. "Yeah," Dean said easily, his voice smooth as silk. "Just savoring the moment. This is nice. Really nice." He picked up his fork again. Vivienne relaxed slightly, her smile widening. Dean could feel her anticipation. She wanted him to eat, needed him to eat. Instead, Dean did something he perfected in hundreds of performances. Misdirection. "You know what?" he said, setting down his fork and standing up. "I should make a toast. Thank everyone for being here." Vivienne's smile faltered for just a second. "Oh, that's sweet, but you don't have to." "I want to," Dean said firmly. He picked up his champagne glass and walked to the center of the room, drawing everyone's attention. Behind him, he heard Vivienne's chair scrape against the floor as she stood up. Dean made a short, heartfelt toast thanking everyone for their friendship, for making Vegas feel like home, for being there through the end of his partnership with Jerry and the beginning of this new chapter in his career. Everyone applauded. Glasses clinked. The moment was warm and genuine. While everyone was distracted, Dean did something that would save his life. As he walked back to his seat, he passed behind Vivienne's chair. In one smooth motion, invisible to everyone else, he switched their dessert plates. His went in front of her. Hers went in front of him. It was a performer's trick, the kind of sleight of hand magicians used. Nobody noticed. Why would they? Who pays attention to dessert plates at a party? Dean sat back down. Sorry about that, he said to Vivienne. Couldn't resist. She was staring at the plate in front of her. Her plate, which she thought was Dean's. For a fraction of a second, something crossed her face. Panic, maybe, or a calculation. Then she smiled. You're sweet, she said. Dean picked up his fork and took a bite of what had been her dessert. It was delicious. Rich chocolate, perfectly moist, the raspberry tart and fresh. He ate it slowly, savoring every bite, watching Vivienne from the corner of his eye. She wasn't eating hers. You don't like chocolate? Dean asked innocently. I'm not hungry anymore, Vivienne said. Too much dinner. Come on, Dean said, his voice playful but with an edge underneath. You went to all this trouble. At least have a bite. Something in his tone made Vivienne look at him sharply. She was trying to figure out if he knew, if he suspected. Dean kept his expression neutral, friendly, just a guy enjoying dessert at a party. Maybe later, she said. I insist, Dean said, and now there was steel in his voice. The room had gone quiet. Frank was watching. Joey was watching. Everyone at the table had noticed the sudden tension. Vivienne's smile was frozen on her face. Dean, I really don't. Eat it, Dean said quietly. Please. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Vivienne picked up her fork with a trembling hand. She cut a small piece of the cake, lifted it to her mouth. Stopped. I can't, she whispered. Why not? Dean asked, though he already knew the answer. Vivienne's composure cracked. Because it's poisoned, she said, so quietly that only Dean and the people immediately around him could hear. I put rat poison in the cake. In your cake. Enough to kill you within an hour. The table erupted. Frank was on his feet. Joey was calling for security. Peter Lawford had grabbed Vivienne's arm to keep her from running. But Dean just sat there, strangely calm, looking at the woman he'd almost loved. Why? He asked. Vivienne's face was a mask of rage and desperation now. Because you're worth more dead than alive, she spat. Do you know how much money I would have inherited as your grieving girlfriend? The one who was with you when you tragically died? The sympathy, the opportunities, the connections? I would have been set for life. You were never French, were you? Dean asked. Montreal. Vivienne said bitterly. Close enough. Everything else was a lie, too. The mutual friend who introduced us? I paid him. The chance meetings at parties? Carefully orchestrated. I've been planning this for 6 months. 6 months of playing the perfect girlfriend, waiting for the right moment. Security had arrived. Large men in dark suits who worked for the casino, who knew how to handle problems discreetly. They took Vivienne by the arms, and she didn't resist. The fight had gone out of her. As they led her away, she looked back at Dean. How did you know? She asked. Dean thought about the little girl in the shadows, the desperate warning, the finger pointing at his plate. Someone told me, he said, simply. Vivienne laughed, a broken sound. Lucky you. They took her out through a side door. The party was over. People were gathering their things, talking in hushed voices about what they'd just witnessed. Frank came over and put his hand on Dean's shoulder. You okay, Pally? Yeah, Dean said, but I need to do something. He stood up and walked toward the stage, toward the shadows where he'd seen the girl. Frank followed him, confused. Dean pushed through the curtains into the backstage area. It was dark back here, utilitarian, exposed pipes and concrete floors, the unglamorous machinery that made the glamorous show possible. What are we looking for? Frank asked. Her, Dean said. He found her huddled behind a stack of chairs, trying to make herself invisible. She looked terrified when she saw Dean approaching, like she thought she was in trouble. Dean crouched down to her level, making himself small and non-threatening. Hey, he said softly. What's your name? The girl didn't answer. She was shaking. It's okay, Dean said. You're not in trouble. You saved my life. Do you understand? You saved my life. I saw her, the girl whispered. Her voice was hoarse, like she wasn't used to talking. In the kitchen earlier, I was looking for food in the trash, and I saw her put something in the cake, powder from a bottle. She didn't see me. I'm good at not being seen. Dean felt something break inside his chest. This child had been eating from the trash. How long have you been living like this? He asked gently. Since my mama died, the girl said. Maybe 6 months. I stay in the alleys behind the hotels. Sometimes I can slip inside and find food. The casino people chase me out if they catch me, but I'm fast. What's your name? Dean asked again. Sarah, she said quietly. Well, Sarah, Dean said, I owe you everything, and I'm going to make sure you never have to eat from the trash again. Is that okay? Sarah looked at him with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. People say things like that, she said. They don't mean it. I mean it, Dean said. I'm Dean Martin. When I say something, I do it. Ask anyone. Frank stepped forward. He's telling the truth, kid. Dean's word is gold. Dean stood up and held out his hand. Sarah looked at it for a long moment, weighing whether she could trust this strange man in a tuxedo who smelled like expensive cologne and spoke with kindness in his voice. Finally, she took his hand. Dean led her out of the backstage area, through the casino and out the main entrance of the Sands. His car was waiting, a black Cadillac Eldorado. The valet looked shocked to see Dean Martin emerging with a dirty, homeless child, but Dean ignored the stares. He drove through Las Vegas, away from the Strip with its neon lights and false promises. He drove to the residential neighborhoods, the quiet streets where normal people live normal lives. He pulled up in front of a modest but well-maintained house with a white picket fence and a light on the porch. Wait here, Dean told Sarah. He got out and knocked on the door. A woman in her 50s answered, her face lighting up when she saw who it was. Dean, she said, what are you doing here? I need a favor, Mrs. Chun, Dean said. A big one. Mrs. Chun had worked as a wardrobe supervisor at the Sands for 15 years. She was kind, trustworthy, and had a spare bedroom since her own children had grown and moved away. Dean explained the situation quickly and honestly. I can pay for everything, he said. Her room, her food, her school, everything, but she needs a home. A real home, not money, not charity. A home. Mrs. Chun looked past Dean to the car, where Sarah's small face was visible in the window. Bring her in, she said without hesitation. Over the next hour, Dean watched as Mrs. Chun worked magic that had nothing to do with Las Vegas illusions. She ran a bath for Sarah, found clean clothes that had belonged to her daughter, made hot soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. She spoke to Sarah softly, kindly, treating her like a person instead of a problem. Sarah ate 3 sandwiches and 2 bowls of soup. She'd probably been starving for days. While Sarah was bathing, Dean spoke with Mrs. Chun in the kitchen. I'm going to set up a trust fund, he said, for her education, her future. But I don't want her to know about it yet. I don't want her to think this is about money. What is it about? Mrs. Chun asked. Dean thought about the moment in the Copa Room, the desperate warning from a child who had every reason to stay hidden but chose to speak up anyway. The courage it must have taken to approach a stranger, to break her own rules of survival, to risk being caught and thrown out. It's about dignity, Dean said finally, about giving someone a chance when the world has decided they don't deserve one. It's about being the kind of person who doesn't just walk away when they see someone suffering. Mrs. Chin nodded. She can stay as long as she needs, she said. And Dean, thank you for bringing her to me. I've been lonely since my husband passed. Maybe we can help each other. Sarah emerged from the bathroom, looking like a different child. Clean, warm, fed. Mrs. Chun had found a nightgown for her, had brushed the tangles from her hair. She looked fragile and uncertain, like she couldn't believe this was real. Dean knelt down beside her. Sarah, Mrs. Chun has agreed to let you live here. You'll have your own room, 3 meals a day, and you'll go to school. Is that okay with you? Why are you doing this? Sarah asked the question adults should ask but rarely do. Because you saved my life, Dean said, and because everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves to feel safe. What if I'm bad at it? Sarah whispered. What if I mess up? Then you mess up, Dean said, and you try again. That's how life works. But Sarah, you're not alone anymore. Do you understand? You're not alone. Tears started running down Sarah's face. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe, or hope. Dean visited Sarah every week when he was in Las Vegas. He attended her school plays and her parent-teacher conferences. He taught her how to play cards and how to tell a joke. He made sure she understood that she mattered, that her life had value, that the night she saved him had changed both of their lives. Years later, when Dean was asked about the incident, about the woman who tried to poison him, he always deflected. Just another Vegas story, he'd say with a shrug. But when asked about Sarah, his whole face would light up. That girl saved my life, he'd say. And I don't mean from the poison. I mean really saved my life. She reminded me what matters. Not the shows or the money or the fame. People matter. Taking care of each other matters. Standing up when you see something wrong matters. He'd pause, remembering a 9-year-old girl in a dirty dress, risking everything to warn a stranger. She taught me that dignity isn't something you're born with. Dean would say, it's something you give to each other. And the truest measure of a man isn't how many records he sells or how many people know his name. It's what he does when someone needs help and nobody's watching. Sarah graduated from high school with honors. Dean was there, sitting in the front row, applauding louder than anyone. She went to college on the trust fund he'd established, studying social work because she wanted to help other kids who'd fallen through the cracks the way she had. When she graduated from college, Dean threw her a party at the Sands. Not in the Copa Room this time, but in the main showroom. He performed a full show in her honor, dedicating every song to the bravest person I know. During the party afterward, Sarah found Dean at the bar. She was 21 now, beautiful and confident, a far cry from the terrified child who'd hidden behind stage furniture. I've been thinking about that night, she said. Which night? Dean asked, though he knew exactly which night she meant. The night I warned you about the cake, Sarah said. I've been thinking about why I did it. I was so scared. I could have just run away, just let it happen. It wasn't my business. You were a stranger. Why didn't you? Dean asked. Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering. Because my mama taught me that staying silent when you see something wrong makes you part of wrong, she said. And because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to have people walk past you like you don't exist. I couldn't do that to someone else, even a stranger. Dean felt tears in his eyes. Your mama was a smart woman. She was a good woman, Sarah said. And you're a good man, Dean. Not because you're famous or talented. Because when a dirty kid gave you a warning, you listened. Because you could have had security throw me out. Could have ignored me. Could have thought I was crazy. But you listened. Best decision I ever made, Dean said. Second best, Sarah corrected with a smile. The best decision was finding me afterward. Not just saving me that night, but actually following through, giving me a real chance. Most people wouldn't have done that. Most people aren't paying attention, Dean said. They're so caught up in their own lives, their own problems, that they don't see what's right in front of them. But you saw me that night. You saw danger and you spoke up. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done on stage. They stood together at the bar, the famous entertainer and the college graduate, connected by a moment of crisis that had turned into a lifetime of mutual respect and love. The story of what happened to Vivienne Rousseau got buried, just like most scandals in 1950s Las Vegas. The casino paid off the right people, made the right calls, and Vivienne disappeared into the criminal justice system without much fanfare. It was later discovered that she'd done this before, targeting wealthy men, though Dean had been her most ambitious mark. But the real story, the one that mattered, wasn't about the woman who tried to kill Dean Martin. It was about the girl who saved him. It was about a 9-year-old child who'd lost everything choosing to protect a stranger instead of protecting herself. It was about a man at the height of his fame, choosing humanity over convenience, choosing to follow through on a promise when it would have been easier to forget. It was about dignity being something you give freely, not something you earn. September 14th, 1957. The night Dean Martin almost died. The night a homeless girl named Sarah became part of a family. The night that proved the most important things in life happen off stage in the quiet moments when nobody's applauding. In a city built on illusion, Dean Martin found something real that night, not in the spotlights or the champagne or the applause, but in the shadows and the backstage darkness, in the eyes of a child who had nothing to give except a warning. And he built a life on it, not his stage life, his real life, the one that mattered. That's a performance worth remembering.